Hello, welcome to the channel. This is Binney. I'm deviating from our previous silent format because I'm really excited to share with you this watercolor palette that my friend found at an antique store. The inside of the palette is labeled Binney and Smith. These were the co-founders of Crayola, and though the brand was already known as Crayola at the time, the fine art line was called Binney and Smith. As you can see, this palette was well used, and there are even bristles left in the pan by the previous artist. We tried searching online for similar palettes to see how old this one was, and while we could not find this exact palette, similar ones were listed for sale, saying that they dated from anywhere between the 1950s and 1980s. Finally, my mother had the idea to just message Crayola themselves, and they actually responded. Based on their historic product catalog, this palette was released between the 1950s and 1960s, which makes it, at the time of this recording, 60 or more years old. The first impression that this palette gives is that it reactivates beautifully. Some cheaper brands don't always reactivate well even after a few days. So after 60 years, this formulation is still working great. The second impression is that these colors are very smooth and non-granulating for the most part. I have no pigment information, so I just labeled these as simply as possible in the swatches. One final observation is that you can use this as a CMYK palette, which a lot of modern palettes don't necessarily allow you to do. I figured we could try out the palette by using every color to paint a fun little drawing I made. This time I'm experimenting with using a brown-colored pencil as the line work, since black can be a little too harsh for faces depending on the lighting of the subject. For these wolves, I tried to mimic the style I've seen in old Japanese paintings, particularly the wall paintings of Nijo Castle, where dangerous animals like tigers and leopards often have exaggerated, almost grotesque features. This type of stylization captures the fearsomeness of these animals very well, and I wanted to contrast the woman's cool confidence with the ferocious beasts around her. It's pretty common that I continue making adjustments throughout the line work process. Sometimes seeing the artwork through the light board is like seeing it with a fresh pair of eyes. Since it was one of the least used colors in the palette, magenta will be the overall base color of this painting. After splashing blue and yellow across it, I went over it with the Boku Undo blackish brown to darken the background and set the tone of the painting. After determining the base colors of all the elements of the painting, everything from here on is just layering watercolor. I stuck to mainly warm shadows for this painting. The green in this palette is a really fantastic, cool green, but it was also the most used color, so I allowed it to stand alone in the folding screen behind her. Naturally, I can't resist adding highlights in fine-tech Arabic gold. At the end, I went back over the line work with a brown micron pen. Although I think a lot of people associate Crayola with entry-level children's art supplies, the vibrancy of this palette, along with the quality of the formulation and application after 60 years, shows that Crayola are masters in their own pigments. Again, I have no information on the light fastness of these colors, but I think that if Crayola wanted to release an artist-grade palette with light fast colors, I would certainly try it out because the quality of this set really impressed me. Anyway, let me know how you feel about this new style of narration, and as always, thank you for watching.